Okay, morning everyone. Here we are again for another winter Friday morning and getting started for back to school in term 3. Yes, it is term 3. My goodness, my daughter's last term ever at school. This, yeah, where the hell did that go? So everyone's getting back to it. And yes, we've got a lot of updates and various things today. Unfortunately, we had our speaker pull out from today, which was going to be our Skills Active New Zealand guys, because they got COVID, as is everyone at the moment, it feels like. So, but they're coming back on the 5th of August. So make sure you jump that one into your diary. And yeah, let's find out what's going across the ditch and maybe do a bit of information share, which is what these Connect and Shares are all about. Hoping to learn from each other and support each other in the outdoor industry. So we're here for number 104. And before we kick off, can I please pay my respects for our traditional owners of past and present, and may that we work with them to encourage more people to understand the planet in which we work on every day. We try to care for, nurture for, and get our visitors and our participants connected more to nature. So let's kick off. And oh, look, Dom's online. Of course he is, because he's going to gloat.
Notice I didn't wear my Maroons hat, my jersey, my beanie, my scarf. I didn't do anything like that, Laurie. I wasn't going to rub it in at all.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, mate. Well, I'm doing it for you. So, yes, well done. Good on you, Queensland.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit personally, Laurie, but it was
yeah.
a good game of football. Yeah.
Yes, as you said, it was a bit brutal, but a good game. Fabulous. Awesome. But congratulations. And it's always good for a bit of state rivalry. And yes, it's good to see the Sydney Harbour Bridge last night lit up in maroon. So, all right. What I thought I'd do is just pause the recording for a moment. Okay, we'll resume recording, and what we did just then, guys, is do a little bit of a wrap around the screen on what's happening in relation to our weaknesses and wins. So our weaknesses in the challenges that we're seeing, our wins as far as our successes, and also what opportunities are on the horizon. It was a great share, so thank you everyone for participating in that. We will get into what we need to talk about next, and a bit of an announcement for you from Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, and something new you might see pop up. And we now have the Outdoor Leader and Professional Network. So this is actually part of Outdoors New South Wales, where all individual members will fall under this network instead of being just generalised, bundled into the benefits of all of the other members that are businesses and activity providers in Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. People that are individual members will have solutions that are very much individual solutions for individual needs. So it'll look at all the mentoring programs that we're running currently will start to fold in under the network. Leadership programs will start to be instigated in this network. We'll be looking at advocacy for workers and career path options, and also access to research and information that's relevant to the individuals. And of course, we'll have the freelancer support service to try to build people if they want to start their own side hustle, as we'd say, or business, and encourage them into the right areas to develop that. So this will pretty much happen from September. All individual members will migrate across to the network and get their own correspondence, which will be very relevant to them and not generalised, and give them information that would not be relevant to their needs. So very exciting times with that, that movement. Okay, a few reminders. We've created this little tile, which I'll be sending out to the members to throw onto your email newsletters if you so wish, or your websites, or whatever you want to do. But it is so important that we still remember our COVID safe plans. We're seeing spikes, winter's not over, it will continue. So can we just please remind everyone to wash away, space out and mask up, and make sure they're getting outdoors. So we'll produce one of these that will be available for the members to put their own logo on as well, and we'll send that out very soon. Need to know. Welcome to Craig. He's started in the role as of Monday, the new CEO of the Outdoor Education Group. So we hope that he's settled in well. I haven't jumped on him just yet. We'll give him a bit of space and get him settled, and surely we'll bring him to a Connect and Share very soon. And don't forget, we've got the new SMS message service. So if you haven't got your mobile number registered with us, please let us know so we get you onto that. That's for urgent messages or information that is crucial for members to know. You won't be spammed. However, you can always unsubscribe if you so wish. So just letting you know that that's now there. For our people that have been affected by the floods in July, there is more payments and disaster relief out there. You can jump onto the Service New South Wales website and certainly have it all there. I have sent it to those that I do know have been affected, but if you know anyone yourself that has been affected, make sure they're very well aware of the new funding that is now available for them. The Department of Education Workforce Readiness Program has got so many opportunities for you to participate. This is an opportunity, guys, if you are employing from year 11, year 12, into traineeships, or just want to support us in talking about the outdoors, you are more than welcome to come along. You will need to get in quick because they will be starting literally next week. But as you can see there, most of them are around lunch times and give the students an opportunity to come in and have talks with us about industry opportunities. And they're right across Western Sydney, and into the Blue Mountains. So yeah, if you want to be involved, please let me know as soon as you can, and we'll make sure you get registered with us to participate in those programs. The OEA Awards close today. So if you have any educators that you feel should be recognised for the work that they have done in the outdoor education area, please make sure you get them in. They will be announced at the wonderful NOAC, which will be in September this year. And yeah, if you don't nominate, you can't win. And I love that dog, Helen. It's gorgeous. Okay, a few grants. There's grants everywhere at the moment. So I pulled out a few for you just to remind you also about the MOX grant, which is the Music and Overnight Camps grant in compensation for our Term 4 shutdown last year. So make sure you get your $30,000 if you are eligible, and register, because I think that'll be closing in September. But the sooner you get it, the better you will be. This week when we talked to Safe Work, and Nolene was amazing, she reminded us that there is an increase to the WorkSafe rebates. So $1,000 of what you spend in making your workplace safe could be certainly come back straight to you by applying through this grant. So make sure that if you've got some things that you've expended to keep your WorkSafe safe, jump in and grab your $1,000. One of the programs that was pleasing to see is holiday programs for youth, and there is one coming up for the September holidays and one for the December holidays. Two programs, both at $7,000 each. If you have a program that you would like to offer the youth to get them outdoors and get active, this is a great opportunity to have some funding to go towards that. So $7,000 each holiday period can be added to the program, and that closes on the 29th of July. So really pleasing to see that this is something that the government is now looking at closely. And then there's some good larger grants for our wellbeing recovery. And this again is focused on children and youth. It doesn't close until December. However, it's probably good to look at it now because it's up to $50,000. So it's a bit of a challenging process to go through with this grant, but what a great opportunity to really tap into some of those opportunities we have in our programs that tap into wellbeing recovery for our youth. Have your say. There's a couple around, but the one that I really wanted to focus and continually focus on today closes in less than 2 weeks now, is this ANZCO one. I think I've reiterated it before, and apologies, I'm going to reiterate it again, how important this is for our industry. ANZCO has effect on everything from government funding through to categorisation, through to data collation, you name it. There is a lot that is basically delivered through looking at ANZCO coding. So we don't actually have a good profile as far as ANZCO goes. We need that to increase. We need our occupations to be recognised in this space. So I encourage every single one of you to jump onto that website, which is consult.abs.gov.au, and make sure we all stand up and have our say around what it needs to include. Any questions on that, feel free to jump in. I haven't got Jeffrey with me today, but Jeffrey Lau from Scouts has been working with the ABS on this and certainly has some insight into some of the real big challenges. So if you're needing support in any of your submission on this, just get us in touch and we'll help you with that. Okay, events coming up. 26 to 28 July is the Parks and Leisure Australia, New South Wales and ACT conference. Where they're holding that in Lismore. I do sit on the council, so that's why I said we. We wanted to make sure that Lismore through the floods was supported, and we delayed the event, but we are really pushing to have it there and everyone come along to support the town of Lismore after the floods earlier this year. It looks like to be a great program, of course, because, you know, I'm speaking, but also, yeah, no, there's a great lineup, and it's often a great opportunity to have some great conversations with people from councils on parks and leisure and how they manage and also engage in our industry. The 31st of August is the Outdoors New South Wales and ACT Limited AGM. This will be the first as a company limited by guarantee, but we encourage everyone to come along to that. It will be online, virtual, yeah, great opportunity to hear really what the wrap up of the last year has been and also what the plans are for the future. And I can't forget NOEC, 26th to 28th September, the National Outdoor Education Conference, looking magnificent as the lineup of speakers, but also the activities and what we're going to be doing with the dinner and cocktail party as well. 24 to 25th of November has been solidified as our masterclass dates. So for members, you will know that you have access to that masterclass as being a member of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. Your first attendee is free. Your second will be at a small fee just to cover the costs and make sure that we get a good cross-section of businesses and people from all different walks of life from our industry. So that looks to be a great masterclass. We've got an awesome lineup on that one, and it should be an end of year celebration as well as we get close to the end of 2022. And there's another reminder for you about NOEC, just if I can't do it enough. So that's all the presentation for this morning for everyone, a bit of a catch up on what's going on. But now I thought I'd just talk about the Safe Work program, Safe Work presentation. And Liz has already started for me. So Liz, I'm going to ask you a quick question. What was your biggest takeouts from that session?
Look, I think that I kept saying to myself, what does this mean to me? Or what does this mean to our sector? And the reality is that I then went and said, okay, well, almost every point that she brought up in the session the other day, it's like, oh, that links to such and such in the inventor activity standard, or that links to, oh yeah, I can see why. That makes sense that we identify what equipment we're using for what activities and the training. And so it was really clear in my mind that as an industry, we have a document that helps people meet their work health and safety responsibilities very well. If they choose to use that, then it makes their life easier if they actually are trying to meet the work health and safety requirements in their state.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was really pleasing to hear that all the different instruments they use when they do assess businesses and how upfront they are in supporting businesses and going into their workplace and working with them to see what needs to be done.
Yeah, and it was the other thing that was interesting for me, because I have worked for organisations where WorkSafe have come in within hours of an incident happening. The way she spoke about it was very open and very collaborative. And I think that's another thing for our sector to know, is that we shouldn't be thinking about WorkSafe as a big brother, big sister. We should be thinking about WorkSafe as, we've got to report this accident. Let's keep things as untouched as we possibly can, because with them, we will learn what we need to learn to improve our practices.
Yes.
It definitely wasn't about, we're going to come in and find out who to blame and all those sorts of different things. It was about them realising that they might be coming to a place that they don't know much. And an example was they had to go and visit a place where somebody had been bitten by a crocodile. Well, there are no work standards for safety when you're handling crocodiles. So they had to go in and try and find the resources that would help them to have the conversation to improve the practices. So I just thought that was a really classic example of there isn't anything that exists. So in our case, there are things that exist. So they would go to the activity standards and good practice guides to find out what our sector has said we need to look after when we're doing the different activities. But the class, you know, there is nothing there for safe work practices when you're handling crocodiles, just in case you were wondering.
Maybe we should put a good practice guide in there about crocodiles. Awesome. Dave.
Yes, so when you're talking about crocodiles, there are standards about swimming and observing sea lions and other cetaceans. Many of and cetaceans, sorry, and the sea lions particularly are things that are nearly as bad as crocodiles if you're not careful. So you can actually reference the type of the distances you're allowed and the various things that have been put in across marine safety across Australia, or to protect those sorts of animals, and that references to something like crocodiles without having to do a new thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, she actually really also enforced that consultation thing, which was really pleasing. As Liz said, they had the approach of going in with a consultative mind frame, but I love how she reiterated that businesses really do need to consult their staff on all levels of their safe work environment, formal and informal. Certainly those obviously undertaking risk management activities, but even when they're talking about proposed changes to any policies and procedures that they're doing, making decisions, but also the adequacy of their facilities. And yeah, it was really pleasing to hear that she really emphasized that collaboration. Sorry, Dom. Yeah.
I just wanted to agree with that, Laurie. I didn't join your session, but the bit that I've actually been talking to some people this week about the AAS a bit, and one of the things that I think we get hung up a bit on is the ratios that are in the AAS, like the suggested ratios, and they're not the be all and end all, they're just one control measure. But one thing that I think operators right now are finding, which goes to the fact that there has been significant changes in staffing, and also particularly new staff joining organisations. So you can't really just rely on your safety management system that you might have developed 2 years ago or whatever, and it might have been appropriate at that time if you had an entire team of highly qualified and well-trained staff who all work to the same level. And it's a bit of understanding that's the entire system and how it all interacts. But it might be that at the moment, if you have more inexperienced staff, or even staff who are inexperienced in your working environment, that maybe you need to up the level of, it could be supervision, but it could be other measures. And I think we seem to go back to default, which is almost like that the only thing we can control is how many leaders we have on, or that sort of thing, but it's about the entire system. And I think that's a really important part of what's in the adventure activity standards. But I think sometimes we get hung up on those ratios and what is an appropriate ratio. And I think it's looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, it's a systems thinking perspective, and it's one element of so many others. And I think that's what makes the auditing of the AAAS quite challenging, if I might say so, Liz, is, you know, for Liz, you know, when she does it, she's got to go into the business and look at it holistically, and the environments and the situations that they have. But yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dom. Rob, you had sorry, Liz, go. Right.
I was just going to say on that point, Dom, I think that the most important diagram in the adventure activity standard is that one that shows the interrelationship between all of them. And the reality is that, and I was only just working on a workshop the other day to do the for the affinity program, and zeroing in on what you just talked about is so essential, and it's always been essential, right? It's been the sticking point of why we do or we don't put ratios in these documents. And the reality is unless you consider the participants and their skill set, the staff person and their skill set, the environment that you're doing the activity, and the influences that has, unless you do all of those, you can't even create a ratio. And that ratio is going to change all the time. And you make a really good point about when your staff are fairly new to the sector, you don't want to send them out as far. You want to make sure they're on a supported program versus a non-supported program. And the reality of that is, if you are just reading the document, it's lost. But if you're having a conversation about the document and you're starting to figure out what links back into those standards, it isn't lost. But I don't think necessarily that we've done enough in educating the principles behind thinking about why do I like it. You don't just meet the adventure activity standards because it's a must, because it isn't. You actually meet the adventure activity standards because you want to run a good business and you want to keep people as safe as possible. But that complexity of that document that has the arrows going to the 6 different sections, we need to engage with that a lot with our people, so that they actually see that the interrelationship is there. And it doesn't always hit you in the face that they're meeting the standard or the good practice guides.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Really great. Sorry, Rob, you've had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just I guess it's a little off to the side of the safe work issue, but I just had a recent interaction with my insurer.
Yeah.
So went through reinsuring, and I just put in a submission and they said, yes, that's fine. And I actually read the document. So that was a first. But what it said is you must comply with the Royal Surf Life Saving standards.
Yes.
And I wrote back to them. So my business is paddleboarding, kayaks, outdoor adventure, walking tours. And I wrote back to them, I said, so I had these answers already in my mind, but I was asking them if they knew what they were talking about. I said, what peak body do you, get your standards and requirements from? And when they said Surf Life Saving, I said, do you realize that Surf Life Saving only mandates or only recommends how to run a swimming pool? So they completely do not know about Australian activity standards or Outdoors New South Wales. And that was the broker who asked the question of the insurer, Lloyd's of London or whoever the hell it is, and they knew nothing. So they asked me, well, what organisation do you think your peak body should be?
Right.
And at the moment, it's only a draft, so you can only make submissions. You can't even get a copy of the draft. So there is nothing there. My whole insurer is hanging his hat on taking me to court or supporting me in court based on how to run a swimming pool and how to design a swimming pool, because there is a specification which they have only just taken from AHDS or something, basically the Australian design of the swimming pool, something. So the insurer has no idea what my liability or and it led me to ask the question of my counsel, who issues me a permit for my operation. I said, have you done a risk assessment of all your swimming outdoor swimming pools, rivers, waterways, lakes, dams, blah, blah, blah? Because they permit me to go on the water. But basically their answer was, well, we only deal with the high tide mark. Anything above that is our responsibility. Anything below that into the water, they just have, they just wipe their hands of it. So it's a minefield. It's for me, it's a crossover of several organizations and liability, dismissing liabilities when I'm gonna, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I was going to, before she even raised her hand, I was going to say, Liz, I'd love your feedback on this one, because yes, I know this is one we're challenged with. Liz, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've literally just on my screen, I've just pulled up a you might want to consider this in the workshop that I'm doing, and the reality is that we exist in a system, and I'll try to be as quick as I possibly can. We exist in a system, and what you've just picked up there, Rob, is that you understand what system you're in, and our task is to make sure that we document that so that our insurers are aware that we're actually, we understand that. So a classic example is, you've just mentioned the LGA. So your LGA, I have it on good authority that they aren't necessarily, and this is not my opinion, but they aren't necessarily good risk managers or good risk planners at the moment. There's a gap in understanding. There's probably a gap in understanding around our country. When we think of work health and safety, we don't necessarily think of the bigger, broader risk management structure. And so what you've picked up there is that Royal Life Saving does actually create a document that is about operating in aquatic environments. So that's one thing that you would need to consider. The second thing that from a local government perspective, because there is a document that talks about just inside or just outside the coastal area. So they're very clear about that. The good practice, the adventure activity standards and good practice guides have got a section on the similar sort of thing. And so what those two documents will help inform is what kind of swimming abilities or what kind of life-saving abilities do your aquatic people need. And one of the things that I'm suggesting when I do an audit with people is they should just have a list of what those regulations and laws are that are applicable to their activities in their organisation. And if they've got that, then that informs them that if their practices are informed by that, then when they go to the insurer goes, oh, it's Royal Life Saving Society of Australia, it's the core good practice guides and the adventure activity standards, yada, yada, yada. All of those things are referenced in your policies and procedures. Yeah. And I'm encouraging people when they're creating policies and procedures to actually have a reference table. And if that reference table has got laws, regulations, et cetera, that's fantastic, because it means they've taken the time to think about who their regulatory bodies are and what the requirements are of the land managers, local council, et cetera, where they are. And I think it's a big responsibility, but it's part of the conversation. And again, as we're working through our venture activity standards and good practice guides and what we need to do and what the insurers need, it's a conversation. But I can't express enough, and that's one of the, it's literally a slide that I've got in this presentation that I'm actually going to be recording later today for Laurie, but it's really about going, you have to take the time to understand these things, who's in your system, who do you need to please, and at the end of the day, what laws and regulation do you need to attend to make sure that you're putting your staff in the best possible place to run a lawful and safe program.
Yeah, brilliant. Well said. So, Rob, I hope that's helpful. There'll probably be things in that surf life-saving stuff that you could certainly pull out and use, but it's having that conversation with your insurer around, right, this is my business, here's the risk. And I just wanted to share, Liz was actually talking about the systems approach earlier. This is straight from the standard, and this is the chart that Dom and Liz were talking about, is that integration of everything. So it's understanding, even in this area, you know, your local council in this part, your landowners in this part, and how that all intertwines in the system. Does that help, Rob?
So was she saying that it's my responsibility or individual business owner's responsibility to draw up a matrix for the inept insurers or the lazy councils or the other organisations that haven't got their finger on the pulse, for me to educate them? Is that what you're saying?
For your own protection, yes. But Liz, do you want to answer that more articulately?
Yeah, look, Rob, it's not about you doing their job. It's about you doing your job. So if I'm going to go out the door, and I'll do it from a driving perspective. If I want to go and jump into my Toyota Corolla, I know I need a driver's license. If I want to go and rent a 12-passenger van, can I still do that with my regular driver's license? When I go up to a 20-passenger van, I need to go to a light or a rigid license. So I'm going to make that decision for driving. So why wouldn't I make that decision for, I'm going to operate on somebody's body of water? What requirements are there for me? So it's actually, no, you're not doing the job for the insurance companies. We've got a role to play, the peak bodies have got a role to play in helping educate the land managers and the insurance companies about what we do. Otherwise, they'll close us down. We are not amusement parks. You know, what we want to be able to do is show that we're attending to the legal requirements for the organisation that we are running. And that would be, it crosses anything, but driving is just such a really easy example. You go to a 20-passenger van, you actually have to have a different license. You go and drive a fire truck of a certain weight, you need a heavy driver's license. You don't get in that fire truck unless you've got the heavy driver's license and you've got practice. Then it's up to the RFS or whatever fire company you're working with to then decide whether or not you can drive that off-road or on-road. So the RFS needs to have training in place if the people who are driving their trucks are going to take it off-road into fire truck roads and those sorts of different things. So you can see that the law is about who can drive what vehicle, but the standard that organisation has is, how am I going to look after my firefighters and my drivers when they go off-road to fight fires?
And I think what you've highlighted, Rob, is what we're trying to do as peak bodies across the country, is look at, okay, what things and systems and processes can we put in place to make that easier for our operators to have, for want of a term, a tick box, a checklist, a system that could be like an accreditation, that it's easy for people to say, okay, they've already jumped through these hoops, they've got these things in process because they've had some tick from someone else. So hopefully, as Liz said, educating land managers and landowners in what we do often these tools are helpful if we can build them to take that with us.
Yeah, but if I don't own the waterways, and there's hazards there, like it's an organised, if it's an LGA responsibility or maritime, whoever, waterways, but they're issuing permits for tourism operators to do kayak tours at Tea Gardens or at Foster or at Port Macquarie, SUPs. But if it's someone else's asset, like a waterway or a river, like Barrington Outdoor with the Barrington River, someone else is responsible for it, and I do my best to get my driver's license and allocate the right vehicle and do the right things by the law, because I know what standards and what AAS applies. But when someone else, an organisation or an insurer, comes around after an incident and says, and it's totally out of my control, someone else is going to take a different interpretation on it, and we could be just said, well, why didn't you get their approval? Why didn't you ask for their risk assessment? Or why didn't you tell them that you're working to AAS instead of a Royal Life Saving Association? So it's we're the minnows, and they're the ones with the ownership of the asset or the property or the permit. And even whatever we write in our matrix or in our safe work method statement, it won't ever be enough.
Yeah. And Rob, I think you've highlighted something that I think everyone needs to take away from anything safe work related. As like Liz said, as a business, you are in control of the safety of your participants and your visitors and also your staff. How you work with the areas you use is about collaboration, and I think that's the message of certainly the Safe Work presentation, but also today, is you've got to have those conversations to get that mutual understanding of what you're going to be doing in that space. Look, in the interest of time, I know we've only got 6 minutes left, but yeah, happy to take that offline if you want to discuss a little bit more about that. But I think you've really got to look at the systems approach when it comes to certainly public land, because they've got more insurance than all of us put together to protect themselves. Okay, guys, just the quick other things that I wanted to make mention. What Safe Work, certainly if you look across the board, we do risk management for our own activities, but please don't disregard those simple ones that are the highest incident rates, which is the slips, trips, falls, all of those things that actually happen in an office situation as well as to and from. And I think sometimes we focus so much on our activities that from a safe work perspective, there's a lot of other areas that get missed. And that goes obviously with COVID right now and the boost of numbers that we've had, reminding everyone that you've got to protect your staff as much as possible from all different risks, including that. She did also mention there's a great WHS book and toolkit. Nolene is actually coming to our masterclass to actually workshop that toolkit with us. So yeah, another great opportunity if you're able to get to the masterclass. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to make mention. I think we know how to manage a risk when we do have some incidents occur quite well. But if anyone wants to jump in and just, those that did attend, I think Dave, you were there, that's probably it on screen. But yeah, if there's anything else you want to mention other than just the free advisory business visit, please take that up from your safe work provider. It's just a great check and ability to have someone else come into your business and say, yes, you are on track, or no, you're not. And Rob, that might be a great solution for yourself as well. Get them to come in and have that chat with you. Dave.
Yes, I mean, one of the options available to us as an operator, if we're not happy with the safety that a land manager, you go into an area and it's dangerous, you can report that to WorkSafe. Yeah, I'm not suggesting we do it all the time. In fact, I think we need an advisory or a set up a communication group that work at Safety New South Wales between us, the outdoor industry New South Wales and WorkSafe to sort of work through the problems. But we can certainly, if a land manager like a council or park consistently don't provide a safe operating area, report them. That may be the way we have to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Just on the reporting too, one thing that I probably was aware, but not to the urgency, she did mention that any incident with a staff member or a customer should be done within the first couple hours. So just a reminder to everyone, if there is an incident, that she recommended that reporting within the first couple of hours to make sure that all information is recorded accordingly. Great, 3 minutes left. I might close that conversation up unless there's any other questions or comments, and may stop the recording and see if anyone wants to have a chat about anything else. So thank you for joining us today, everyone.